But unfortunately, those instances are the exception to the rule. It's much more common that something gets censored and we're just told to #deal with it. The much more common response we get when we complain about censorship and ask for the option to remove it is to either be completely ignored, or like what happened with that one Korean 2D MOBA game that I can't even remember anymore, where their response to us asking for an option to turn the censorship off was literally, that would defeat the purpose of the censorship. And in case you're wondering, no, I actually haven't heard anything from them at all since then. I bet their game's already shut down since it seemed like the majority of their audience didn't like that response. I believe we have a saying for that. I wonder what it is. Well, I'm sure we'll bring it up shortly. But either way, this right here is the reason why we can't compromise with the SJWs. We want what we want, and at the same time, we also actually want them to have whatever they want available to them. So we are willing to compromise on a solution that gives both sides the options they want. But they, on the other hand, don't even want anything for themselves most of the time. They just don't want us to have what we want because they don't like it and therefore it shouldn't be allowed to exist. And it's because of this discrepancy that there can be no compromise with them.
And there you have it. In the modern history of gaming, every time something gets censored, it provokes more discussions to it. And because the discussion is often willing to go deeper in the themes of censorship, there's also often the case of banning a user from accessing the Steam forums, or the developers dismissing the entire conversation and arguments in Twitter by saying, deal with it, or silently removing comments, perhaps with paragraphs filled with arguments, links, proof, evidence, verified information that will be inconvenient to the pro-censorship cause. The fact that developers and moderators are doing these actions suggests that they have something to hide from the gamers, don't want to give the customers what they want, or simply for pure incompetence. For the sake of the argument, go to the Steam discussion forums of the upcoming game of Cyberpunk 2077, do a search with the single word inclusive, and you will find various logged threads related to that word. There was a controversy related to that game which consisted in the removal of gender in the character creator in exchange for body types for the sake of being inclusive, according to the developers' words. Maybe there are threads with heated discussions, but if you, as a moderator, log a thread without giving reasons, like I said before, it may be an indication that you have something to hide from the customers who made the choice to pre-order the game. In my opinion, people who pre-order the games should be treated better than a customer and have their questions properly answered, as long as this doesn't leak any important elements from the history that may lead from a potentially spoiler, as is obvious as this may be. The MOBA region referred was Hyperuniverse, and it predicted what happened later. The game was shut down. Should it be surprising after they declared their response? Potential customers backed off and stopped caring for this game and decided to not give them money, and already existing players stopped playing the game. Then Raging makes the comparison of the pro-censorship side, who won't tolerate options in games for everyone, with people acting on violence, to use an analogy.
Look at it this way, if somebody wants to beat you to death, and you obviously don't want to be beaten to death, do you compromise with them and let them beat you only half to death every other week? I don't think so. You need to render them incapable of ever messing with you again. That's the only option you are left with. As long as the other side here keeps trying to destroy other people's entertainment and can't mind their own business, we will have no choice but to continue trying to destroy them. In the end, all we want is to be left alone, and they refuse to leave us alone, so they need to go.
Raging illustrates how similar SJWs and bullies operate. Police in schools, college and at work use blackmail and physical violence to obtain anything they wish on their victims, which is for instance exposing dark secrets of yourself or, like Raging states, just beat you to death. SJWs make use of the cancel culture, like trying actively to get you fired from your job after a post you made 10 years ago, or accusing you for something you didn't do, perform doxing with threats against you or a beloved one, like your siblings, your wife or your child, or organize a collective encounter in your house if you don't give in to their demands. And sadly, they often get away with it because they're shielded by the media and the people in positions of power who are aligned with their politics and ideology. As we continue with this video, I suggest you, the listener, keep the previously mentioned live and let live philosophy in mind. Everyone has problems in their lives, such as personal relationships, going to school, keeping a job and a family, health and sanity. Gaming is a hobby that anyone who likes them makes use to distract themselves from their problems, for a period of time at least. But when video games become jeopardized to political correctness or propaganda, gamers who have a huge or massive investment in gaming, which is time and money, they really tend to be very vocal against these topics because they don't want their entertainment and privacy with political invasion added to their stress.
And just so no one forgets, this doesn't only apply to the textbook left-wing SJWs, but to the right-wing SJWs as well. And oh man, do they get triggered when I refer to them as right-wing SJWs, so that's why I'm gonna keep doing it. And these are the types I'm talking about. The types that shriek pedophilia at every anime out there, probably while banging real-life kids themselves, given that these types have the same track record of being caught projecting as male feminists do, as well as the types that tried to strong-arm Steam into banning all adult content. We must not forget that they are our enemies as well and are constantly working against us. They are all horrible moral authoritarian busybodies and we cannot compromise with any of them. And just because they are not currently our biggest threat doesn't mean we should go easy on them, because they will just bide their time and lay the groundwork for a new attack while we are distracted. And we're seeing this right now with the video games cause violence crowd. You thought they disappeared? You thought we finally debunked them into obscurity? Nope, they were just waiting in the shadows as we were too busy with a new wave of censors, and now they are back with even more bogus studies quote-unquote proving that video games cause violence. So since they refuse to go away and leave us alone, as I've been saying all along, our only option is to shut them down.
Here, Reggie makes the comparison between right-wing activists that complain about entertainment, generally to protect the children, and left-wing activists that complain about entertainment, generally to protect the women. However, there have been cases that result in juxtapositions in the two sides. For example, the activist Jordan Hunt was involved in the pro-choice activism in favor of the feminist movement, but is known for committing felonies against women who disagree with him, which are kicking a woman and pushing another woman to the road with an oncoming vehicle. And there is the United Nations wanted to regulate anime with underage cartoons to protect the children, but there are thousands of active pedophiles employed in their organization. And there's also the Catholic Church involved in the sex scandals with children. So there you can see the contradiction: a male feminist who deliberately committed crimes against women, and organizations who claim to protect the children are found to be child predators. And regarding to the case of the one male feminist Jordan Hunt, you may say something on the lines of not all male feminists are like this, probably. We can't judge an entire collective based on one individual, but when a large group of self-proclaimed male feminists, or at least worse for left-wing causes like feminism and abortion, turn out to be charged and arrested for sexual misconduct and repeating this same pattern with many people on the same side, that will give male feminists this kind of reputation as a collective. Sarah Nyberg, a progressive activist quoted by the Washington Post, claimed out to be a pedophile. Bally77, a moderator of the Twitch channel of Feminist Frequency, turned out to be a convicted pedophile. Iain Kidd, writer for the mixed martial arts and critical of domestic abusers, was fired after being convicted of possessing child pornography. James Portnow, Extra Credits creator, was accused of abusive harassment. Sam Kriss, journalist associated with Feminism for Vice and The Guardian, was fired for sexual misconduct. The list is very long, and for the sake of time I'll provide a few links for you to check out. And just to clarify something, the problem with this group is not it's about feminism issues, it's about the double standards. Double standards are a very large problem for every community, especially when you go into dark issues like rape. Everyone here wants to stop rapists, but when someone claims that wants to stop rapists and then gets busted as a rapist, that doesn't legitimate their causes pretty much. Moving on. Censorship has a long history on gaming since the 90s and probably even the 80s. Doom and Mortal Kombat were the first notable games that politics went into with claims such as video games cause violence, video games are tools from the devil, mass shootings are caused by video games. These were the claims made by the right-wing activists such as Jack Thompson, who became famous by attacking gaming with these claims. Now in modern times the censorship is still on with the tactics and politics changed. Now it's the left-wing activism and the claims that this game is racist, gamers are sexist, and instead of attacking from the outside, now they are infiltrating and attacking in the inside. Anita Sarkeesian, who is the female and progressive equivalent of Jack Thompson, an activist with a long history of making such claims of racism and sexism, suggested that she's not going to, quote, take our toys away. But instead what she did was inspire a tactic of putting bad reviews with keywords such as sexism, right-wing, racist, violent on certain games. Putting the bad reviews out there so the developers have their attention and cave in to the demands and make them for them, just to not receive enough sales to consider them profitable, and on top of that to polarize the entire gaming community. Ideally, someone will take a few minutes of doing a simple search in internet instead of jumping to conclusions. And I don't mean articles by journalists, but studies. There is a study by the European Research Council that concludes that there are no links with games with oversexualized characters and sexist gamers, a German study by Carget with no link between video games and desensitization to violence, and then a study from Oxford that violence in video games doesn't affect real-world aggression among young people. And no matter how you feel about the President Donald Trump, you must remember that he advocated for regulation of violence in video games twice, with the first time after the shootings in Florida in March 2018, and the second and last time after the shootings in El Paso in summer 2019. This latter is what Reagan warned and predicted on what will happen about right-wing senators, Republicans, conservatives, which is decide to wait patiently and attack video games when the right opportunity is presented, in this case, a mass shooting. Censors have the same objectives, no matter if they are from the right or from the left. They refuse to go away and leave gamers alone, and naturally, the gaming community gained a tendency to be reluctant to censorship. If the left side or the right side becomes too powerful, they'll have no second thoughts on using censorship's powers against artistic freedom under the virtue of protecting the children, the women, the minorities, the young people, probably adding more motives to censor all video games in our current era. Therefore, and sadly, gamers have no allies. They only have each other to protect and even crowdfund each other, sure, but they are not backed up by any powerful billionaire or at least popular organization to influence on the society. Fortunately, just because we have the freedom to make the decisions for ourselves on which game to play, which movie to watch, which book to read, at the same time that leaves us a solution that resides within ourselves, as Reagan explains.